Back to local politics now. Joining us is Allianz Senator Rex Patrick for a regular chat we have with you, Senator Patrick. Let's start with the news conference you attended just a short time ago on this Integrity Commission. Obviously, it needs to be established with appropriate safeguards because you don't want people to be convicted without due process and that sort of thing.
It's always the problem when someone raises an allegation that they may not be well informed themselves. There may be real reason for the conduct that they have observed, or they may be observing in a wrong way. So you've got to have some thresholds, and that's why you need a you need a professional body, an independent body, people who are legally trained, so they can work out whether a particular threshold has been met before then going to an inquiry that is properly constituted, has the people having the right to have their say, gathering of evidence, testing of evidence, challenging statements, and then coming to conclusions.
We had Eric Abetz on a short time ago. He was raising some of his concerns with the federal ICAC, including that some of those unfounded allegations could turn out to be nothing but really destroy a person's reputation in the meantime. He referenced Margaret Cunneen. Is that a legitimate concern, especially when you've got someone like Andrew Wilkie standing up and saying there's corrupt politicians in this House? That's quite an evocative statement. Yeah,
look, I think that you again need to have an organisation that can where a threshold is met before you launch into an inquiry. In the case of Margaret Cunneen, in the end, the High Court ruled that ICAC was outside jurisdiction in investigating her for what was a relatively small matter, and corrections have now been made in New South Wales to deal with that. That doesn't mean you abandon integrity commissions.
Were you surprised by that claim from Andrew Wilkie? It was quite a strong statement to put out there without,
Look, I think
detail.
I think it is just a statement of fact that there are allegations floating around about MPs and senators, and there have been a sequence of those allegations. What we have at the moment is no means of testing those, no means of really dealing with them properly, and in some sense dealing within either the chamber in the House of Reps or the chamber in the Senate politicises things, and in some senses that's, whilst at the moment it's the only avenue we have, and generally we don't get support from the duopoly, it would be better to be an independent, well-constructed, professional organisation that deals.
But it's not just about politicians either, is it? It's figures within the national security, public service, right across the board.
Anywhere where a power is being exercised that has been bestowed upon someone by way of either the Constitution or the Parliament, we need to have checks and balances in place. And, ICACs are there with special powers because it's particularly difficult for someone to investigate a government department, to look behind the firewall of all the protections that normally are associated with government departments. That's why we give ICACs coercive and extraordinary powers, because they're dealing with matters where they have to carve through the sort of normal protective firewalls that governments have up.
Now, you've put forward a private members bill on quite an interesting topic that not a lot of people would know about. You want security clearances for government ministers. What's the issue there?
Well, I think most people would be surprised to learn that ministers of state, so people like the Defence Minister, the Attorney General who looks after ACIS, where you've got the Minister for Home Affairs, dealing with secrets every day, highly sensitive information, and indeed cabinet information for all other ministers, and yet they've not gone through a security clearance process. That just is a massive hole in our security framework that I believe needs to be plugged.
And so how do you do that, though? Because obviously those who are elected to Parliament are elected with a public mandate.
So members of Parliament and senators are elected to the Parliament by the people, and there should be nothing that fetters that from occurring. However, ministers are selected by a Prime Minister, and they are part of the executive. And they are then, as part of that, their responsibilities, given access to data that members and senators occasionally are exposed to, but very rarely. And so the protection, the vetting takes place in respect only of ministers.
Front benches, okay.
Yeah, front benches. And it can be done...
You'd have to do it for shadow ministers too, because they are often privy to security briefings?
Well, if they are privy to security briefings, it's because it's been approved by the minister. But the deal here is that we're not asking ASIO to vet ministers per se, not like a normal public servant who goes through a process and gets a yes or no answer. We ask in this bill that the Director General of Security, the head of ASIO, generates a report that is provided confidentially to the Prime Minister that informs him of any security issues, and it's totally up to the Prime Minister to decide what to do with it. And then when the Prime Minister is finished with the document, it is returned. Very strict security restrictions around it. The report is not to be used for any other purpose other than to inform the Prime Minister. And the next Prime Minister can't get access to previous reports, so it can't be used to cause political harm.
Because that's the thing, there's no due process for a security clearance. They're confidential. You can't appeal it if you don't get security clearance. Wouldn't that be a great way to knock your colleague off if you were jealous? You wanted their portfolio, call in, oh yeah, they've been up to something dodgy, and then all of a sudden they don't have security clearance anymore.
And that's why there is protections in the bill that I proposed. Only the Prime Minister, who presumably wants the cabinet that he or she has selected, will have access to these reports. And the Director General of Security will be responsible for making sure that these reports are held very closely and no one else can get access to them.
And finally, in relation to Crown and the reports we've seen this week of consular staff expediting visa applications for high rollers, where are your concerns at with that and the parliamentary response to it in terms of an inquiry?
Well, once again, it raises allegations not just in relation to people inside departments, but also allegations in respect of ministers, in respect of police forces. And indeed, the government has partially reacted by initiating an ACLI inquiry, but they can't go to all of the matters. The House yesterday voted down an inquiry, and today we will, with the Greens, seek to establish a Senate inquiry, noting that a joint one couldn't be established.
Plenty happening. Senator Rex Patrick, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks.